Welcome to Pest Control Millionaire, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of pest control and talk to industry experts who have turned their passion into profit. Join us as we interview successful entrepreneurs, share valuable insights, and provide you with the strategies and inspiration we need to build your very own multi-million-dollar pest control empire. Today, we have another really cool guest. I've been following him for probably 6-7 months online for sure. And then we finally met for the first time at Energy. That was pretty cool. But today we have Spenser Morgan. He's a stud. You have all kinds of stuff going on. And so I was like, well, who is this guy? And then I started watching you closer and closer and closer. Started figuring out you did a little bit door to door. And I don't want to ruin it for the listeners, but I just want to introduce you to the show. Say thanks for being here. And we'll just start out by just telling us how you got into the industry. Like, I know the story because I heard it before online, but I just want to tell the listeners how you got in the industry, your backstory, and kind of where we're at today.
Sure. Yeah. So as a lot of people know, the door-to-door industry is kind of overwhelmed with the Mormon missionaries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was a Mormon missionary for 2 years, served a Spanish-speaking mission in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which ended up covering a lot more than Tulsa, Oklahoma, obviously. And while I was out there, I met a guy named Kyle Hamilton, who's currently a pest control operator as well in Phoenix, Arizona. And so he was out knocking doors selling pest control for Altera back then. Well, it was EcoFirst at that point. So Dave sold EcoFirst, started Altera, at which point that's when I joined, basically following in my buddy's footsteps. Needed a way to make money while I was going to college. I'd already had my son and I was married, needed to make money, right? So it was the need for money that got me into it in the first place. And other than going around knocking on doors and talking about religion, I had never really done much of a sales job other than selling programs at Neyland Stadium. But let's face it, as a 15-year-old kid, you're just doing that to get a free football game, you know? So we were just selling the minimums to get into the game for free. With that being said, in 2012, I went out, worked for Altera, knocked for 2 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days, made really good money, and decided, you know what, let's do this again the following summer. Put some time into recruiting, I recruited like 30-something people, but didn't know much about recruiting at the time. Recruited anybody and everybody that was just excited to hear how much money I had made the previous summer. Half of those people didn't show up. So 15 people ended up out there. And within a week, I think we had already lost like 7 of those people.
It's about normal, right?
It can be if you don't know what you're doing, for sure. Yeah. And so for first year recruiting with not much advice given to me on that process, it ended up turning out okay. And so worked for 4 months, made great money again, and then realized, why am I going to college to become an orthodontist? You talked about passion a minute ago in this introduction, and I had no passion for orthodontics. I was just, hoping to have a good career that would pay me good and that wouldn't have a crazy schedule, which seemed to be what orthodontics was. But then I started looking at school. Okay, I'm going to graduate with, $500,000+ in debt to start making the same kind of money that if I were to just put in year-round effort, I'd already be making it right now without going to school. So why am I wasting my time paying a school to eventually hopefully make some money and hopefully enjoy my career? I knew that I enjoyed training people. I knew that I enjoyed knocking on doors and selling pest control. I was like, there's no point in finishing out this path in school. So dropped school. So I'm a college dropout and moved out to Utah to work for Altera full time. Ended up going out the next summer, had a great summer, at which point I had people reaching out asking if I wanted to start a pest control company. And one of those was my dad.
Really?
Yep. So, with that, it's, there's pros and cons to working with family, right?
Yeah. Been there, done that.
There you go. So you kind of know what I'm talking about.
You do.
But, I will say I learned a lot from my dad, just business in general. I didn't grow up with him. So my upbringing, I grew up with my mom. We were dirt poor. The majority of our food in the pantry said the church's name on it that we attended because it was given to us,
Right.
And my dad, on the other hand, worked his butt off in construction and made something out of his life and made quite a bit of money. Ended up having an exit while I was on my mission from his construction company, and so had some extra money and wanted to invest in what I was doing. So we started ProForce in 2015 in Raleigh, and by 2018 we were doing over $3 million in revenue. And so we ended up having some stuff happen within the family that we decided that the best path forward would be to sell the Raleigh location and me buy my dad out of the business, which, he was a silent investor for the most part anyway. So wasn't much of a change. It was just getting him out and having to do something which I didn't really want to do, which was sell a location. So we sold the Raleigh location, and I bought him out of Charlotte and out of the intellectual properties in December of 2018. So then from there, I've just been growing Charlotte, and we're about to reopen in Raleigh, considering our non-compete's up as of last December.
Cool. I got lots of questions already.
There you go.
That's a pretty awesome story. What did your mom say when you dropped out of college?
Yeah, it's funny because I think my dad was the one that was more interested in me finishing college, and kind of more of a traditionalist. And let's face it, like 20, 30 years ago, the best way to create a good life for yourself was to graduate college. And now you're looking at AI. Most of the big degrees that you're gonna be able to get in college right now, you become a doctor. How secure is your job as a doctor? When you can have an app that's created within the next 2 years that scans your face, reads all your vitals just from the twitches in your eye, in your eyelash or whatever, and can help diagnose you. And I just don't see a lot of longevity in some of these intellectual jobs that you generally go to college to make your money with, accounting, AI is going to be able to do it better. So I think that what's unique is I fell into a position in pest control that is probably got the longest life ahead of it. Home services in general probably has the longest life ahead of it without being completely disrupted by AI or robotics.
And we thought that we'd be the first ones to go.
Yeah. I think that due to the advancements in AI versus robotics and the fact that, I don't think we're going to legalize full self-driving, autonomy anytime within the next, 5 years, it's going to be really hard to just completely change this game with robotics in the short term. So
I agree with you. Your first summer, you made some good money. What was your first summer like? What was your first experience?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I love talking about this because I talk about it a lot because I'm recruiting guys and I want them to realize like what it was like for me back then
and how much it's changed. Yeah.
Oh, it's very different. We were carrying around a clipboard full of carbon paper contracts. Yes. And a crayon that we'd write on the street with to remind us as to which houses we had already knocked and which ones to go back to and things like that. And, my first day, I was on a team where my team leader didn't know who I was until I got there. Nobody really had any reason to care other than just being good people as to what my success was. He wasn't getting paid good off of me in comparison to the rest of the team because he didn't recruit me. So I didn't get great training out of the gate. I was kind of on my own. He was like, look, read the training manual and then come out and meet me when you're done with it on the doors. I get out there and he's answering phone calls for the first 2 hours. And I watched him knock like a door and a half because the second one is like, oh crap, I got to take this call. Finish this for me. And so didn't really have a great example at the beginning, but I had a lot of determination and grit, and I actually never went a full day of knocking without selling an account.
From day one?
Yeah, from day one. So that first day, I didn't start knocking. I knocked with Eric, my team leader, at 2:45 is when I got out on the doors with him. And then he let me, we went, took a quick lunch, and then let me get on my own doors at 4. And it was 8:30 when I knocked on a guy's home. It was just turning dark, and I was in Nashville, Tennessee. And this guy drives into his garage. As I got done knocking on his door, went up, talked to him. And, back then pricing was the price chart showed $199 for the initial and $99 quarterly. I was allowed to go as low as 39 on the initial, but I couldn't take anything off the quarterlies unless they were a switch over from another company. And then I could go to 89. And what I ended up doing was I messed it up because I just didn't know. I flipped that and priced them at 99 on the 99 on the initial and then 39 on the quarterlies. And I called my team leader. I was like, "Hey man, I got one." He's like, "Oh great. What's the contract value?" I was like, I had to discount him. He's like, "Well, what was the initial?" I said 99. He's like, "Oh, that's perfect, man. Like you barely discounted him. Like that's kind of normal." I was like, "Yeah, it's the quarterlies." He's like, "Well, what'd you price it at?" 39. He said, "We won't do it. We got to cancel it." I was like, "Well, hold on." Hung up on him, went back, knocked on the door. The guy was like, "You messed the pricing up, huh?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "It was supposed to be initial 39 and 99 quarterly, right?" "Yep." He's like, "All right, well, I'll still do it." He said, "That's a fair price." Yeah. So I ended up making my first sell there. And, by the third day, I actually, my second day, I sold 2. Sold one before lunch, one after. My third day, I was like, "Oh, man, I got this." I get assigned in this really ritzy neighborhood, and I was like, "Man, I'm going to sell a ton in here." So I set a goal that I would not take lunch until I had 2 accounts sold. 6 o'clock rolled around. I hadn't sold a single thing, and I'm hungry. So, by that point, I was kind of concerned as to how this whole thing was going to work out. And in fact, that day, the one account I sold was at 10 p.m.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yep. So, I think that just realizing, okay, I've got a wife and kid in Knoxville, Tennessee, 3 hours away from here. I have to make this work, and I'm not going to stop until it works. And so that's really what got me through it, because I just didn't have the support system that I needed at that time.
So you had almost no training, get put on the doors, but because of grit and determination, you were getting a sale every single day. And there's actually a lot of people that knock doors that listen to this show. And, they get a lot of training, and then they go out there and they're all excited. They're hyped up for the first week or 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden reality sets in, like, oh crap, I got to do this for the whole summer. Like that's when it sets in. It feels like it sets in for a little bit different for everyone. Some people it's 2 weeks, some people it's 3 months, and then some people it's 3-4 months. Like, can I do this for the rest of my life, or can I do this for another summer? But so your wife and your kid is what got you through that first summer. Like they always say, you have to have a really big why. But what did you find out early on that worked for you? Like you typically, like especially in like a switchover market like you're in,
yeah,
it probably wasn't as easy as it sounds, right? To get one sale per day.
Yeah. So my team leader, Eric had been selling for like 4 or 5 years prior to that. And he wasn't the best motivator in the sense that he was very open in saying that this is the most competitive market and toughest market in Nashville, Tennessee that he had ever been in prior. And I'm like, well, crap, how am I going to make this work? So yeah, you do have to recognize what your market is and figure out, okay, what do I have to tailor in my pitch and in my just day-to-day activities to make this work the best that it can, maximize my opportunity. And with that market, yeah, I had to quickly learn who all the other competitors were. What was their service like? What was the perceived value from the average customer? How were they selling their customers? So that then I could take that and say, okay, well, what do I have to offer here at the company I work for that can have a higher perceived value than that, or can I beat their price, right? So I've got to create a delta between what they're getting and what I'm going to give them that's significant enough, whether it's a reduction in cost for them plus a little bit of extra service, or it needs to be, more service and more value out of it. And so And that's tough when you're working for somebody else's company, especially if they're not doing the best job at selling you on all these differences, right? You've kind of got to get trained that. And so
that was my next question.
Yeah, to the business owners that are listening, like that's one of the best things that you can do is train your salespeople on why the people that they're going to sell is going to have more success with you and enjoy the experience. As you remember from Energy, somebody, I can't remember who it was, they said that we're not in the pest control industry. We're in the customer.
That was me.
That was you. You're the
man. It was me.
We're in the customer experience industry, right?
Absolutely. That just happens to do pest control.
That just happens to do pest control. Exactly. And so how do you train your sales guys on helping customers realize that? Like, what is this experience going to be like? And how does it fit my lifestyle better than the current experience that I'm getting from my current provider?
Yeah. So were you figuring this out on your own, or did you start asking a little bit more questions from your manager?
I was asking a lot of questions as much as I possibly could. And, there was definitely tons of great feedback. Like Eric was amazing. It's still a really good friend. He's sold me life insurance since,
Yeah.
And, he really knew what he was doing. That was his last summer. And so he was kind of a little checked out for the most part. But I'd say the majority of the growth actually happened after that first summer and realizing, okay, hey, I'm going to do this again. It was the right after that summer, calling the regional managers and everybody that now had time to talk and asking them tons of questions. That's really when I think I learned the most. And then the second summer, at the end of the summer, so I was at 320 some odd accounts at this time. And I said, I need to...
Which is a killer first summer.
Yeah, well, this is second summer.
Second summer.
Yeah, so second summer. And back then that wasn't horrible. It wasn't amazing. The top rep that year did 904 or 906 accounts, somewhere in there. It was like less than 910. His name was Taylor Woodruff. And I went down to Texas to actually shadow him. I said, look, I've got a lot to learn. This guy is out there crushing it. Let me figure it out. And he loved my work ethic. So he was like, hey, look, I want you to be my car partner this whole time. And I pretty well just shadowed him. I'm like, look, I'm in this for the long haul. I don't care if I don't make a ton of sales today, if I can learn how to make a lot more sales tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And so I shadowed him for about a month and learned the most that I've ever learned, really, just from that experience.
That's incredible. And that was year 2? That
was year 2. Yep. And then from there, year 3, I actually got in a car accident and didn't get a knocked doors hardly at all. It's funny. I had a month and I sold 175 accounts before I got in this car accident.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So you brought up something really that I want to touch on. And you were talking about like retention when you started recruiting your second year. You said you recruited about 30 guys, 15 showed up, and then halfway or 2 weeks in or a week in, the other half quit. You're down to 7 reps. Walk us through that experience, and then from that was like to what it's like currently inside ProForce.
Yeah. So, with that, the biggest thing was I was just recruiting people who were interested in my prior story, right? And the difference between then and now is now what I'm doing is I'm recruiting people based on the difference between where they're at in life and where they want to be, right? And so I gain that understanding from them, and then I tell them about the opportunity, and then I have them sell me on why they deserve the opportunity to be trained to bridge that gap between where they are and where they want to be. Because most people don't have ultra ambitious goals in life. They want to make $150,000 a year, maybe $200,000 a year. And, if you're okay with doing just about anything to hit that $200,000 a year, then, you mentioned earlier, how do you push through and keep going door to doors? At 2 weeks in, you might realize, oh, this isn't something I just want to always do. Well, what do you always want to do? You ask anybody, do you want to play in the NBA? Yeah, I want to play in the NBA. Okay, well, are you willing to take 500 shots a day in practice like Steph Curry does?
Not really, right?
Yeah.
But you have to.
You have to.
And it's like probably like you, like and me growing up, my entire like childhood, I didn't think like, oh, I want to go kill bugs the rest of my life.
I did not grow up saying I'm going to be a bug guy. That's for sure.
Put in the time, we put in the work and showed up every single day for the last how many years because we had to.
Yep. So that's the nice thing with this industry, or door to door in particular, is that practice that Steph Curry's putting in, that 500 shots a day, it's 2.5 million shots that he's likely taken by now to make 3,800 shots that actually count, get added to his record. That practice, you're doing it while you're on the doors.
Right. Getting the reps.
And you actually have opportunity to make money during that practice.
So awesome. For your onboarding, you don't have to tell us the whole process, but what are some highlights of your onboarding and what does your training look like and how many times are you training per week, off season and then maybe during season? Yep.
So my onboarding, and I can open up a little bit about this, but like I use virtual assistants out of the Philippines to reach out to athletes. I found that athletes are the highest performers. There you go.
We get like 50% of our whole team is wrestlers. This is a different type of grit.
It is. So wrestling's a really good niche to be into. There's a guy, Raphael, that just went back to active. So he was there when I was at Altera, and wrestler. You go watch him on Facebook, go follow him. I'll have to get his full name and send it over to you. But man, he is just so determined all the time. And it comes from his wrestling background. So finding somebody that has spent their life training to put all this effort into something to achieve an outcome, if you can redirect that and say, hey, look, here's the real outcome you now want in life, which is finances, right? You really want to make money and you want personal growth, personal development. You want this resume builder where someday somebody might reach out to you and say, hey, we need you as a CEO of this multi-million-dollar company, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, what PE group wouldn't want to take a guy that's been out there putting millions of dollars on a year doing door to door and put them as the leader of an organization that needs to grow?
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, they want that guy. And so now that okay, this is where I want to be. I want to be making lots of money, and I want that, that resume behind me of I've been able to go out and generate millions of dollars a year worth of business. Okay, now door to door doesn't look so bad. I mean, how hard is it to ride a Segway from one door to the next and then say words, have words said back to you, and then move on to the next door?
It's not hard at all physically.
Yeah. Is it really even hard mentally though?
I personally don't think it is.
Exactly. It's really not. Like this, it's just a paradigm that we all want to tell ourselves the excuse, oh, it's hard. I got told no.
But it's hard compared to what?
Exactly.
Like go do something really hard every single day. Like here's a good example. Like it's raining outside and it's cold. It's 50 degrees and it's really cold rain, right? Then you jump in and do the ice tub for 6 minutes. That's 30 degrees. And then you get out, it feels really warm. It's the same thing. Go do hard stuff all the time. So when you go out in the doors, it's not that hard.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great pointer. I think that it's funny because one of the first things that I did to help me realize, hey, this isn't that tough, is I used to love taking like the steaming hot shower where like the whole room, after you get out, you can't even see. It's a foggy room, and somebody was like, hey, man, you should try cold showers. No, I don't want to try cold showers, right? And so that was like prior to all these ice baths that everybody's been doing.
Yeah. Back
in 2012, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll start taking cold showers, make that my hard thing for the day that I don't want to do. And it's just a mental switch that you have to click over.
Yeah. And that's what I tell my team all the time. Like, it's like almost one of our beliefs, like do hard shit all the time. Like when I go to the gym, they hate going to the gym with me because they know I'm just going to work them until they puke. And like, we had 3 days in a row where someone puked last week, but that's just what we do. It's hard. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be hard.
Oh yeah. No, it's funny that you mentioned that. So let's see. It was this year right here, actually. I don't know if you guys can see that.
I can see it, yeah.
So the really tall guy in there, his name's Josh Crane, and he was going to school. I can't exercise physiology, I think is what his study was. He during right at the beginning of COVID, he ended up taking his own life.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, he had some mental demons that he was dealing with, but that year it was funny. I had this competition with my branch manager to see who could put the most size on their arms, and I was like, I'm going to use Josh as my cheat hack. He's going to show me what's going on, and then had some really good workouts with him. And I'm like, dude, I don't understand it. I want to throw up just from doing bis and tris.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? This is something I'm going to do to reps in the future. I'm going to just put them through this buy and try workout, and they're going to puke. And then they're going to feel like, man, I can't believe I'm this soft that just from working my arms, I'm throwing up.
Yeah. Ours was a leg day and then an ab day.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's a lot easier to make somebody throw up. The big muscles, lots of lactic acid, and now your body's got to get rid of some acid. So,
with your dad, how much did he invest the first year?
So the first year it's funny. For the first 3 years, it was $300,000 each year.
Oh, really?
On the dot. Yep.
And what did you use the 300 for?
All the expenses from door to door to, in the beginning, obviously they were wanting down payments on vehicles and, all the down payments on the office and whatever else. Right. But the biggest expense was door to door.
Gotcha. And then you were only in Raleigh at that point, right? You're doing about 3.5 million. And then you had some stuff happen, had to sell. Who did you sell it to? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah. It was EPS. So Andrew Barrows.
Yeah, I know Andrew really well.
Yeah, with Greenix. So he was actually the guy sitting on the other side of the table from me in the negotiations for them. And so it's weird. I actually became really good friends with him throughout that process, and that's kind of the enemy in that sense, Yeah. Because it's like, hey, man, I've got to beat you up for every dollar that you're willing to pay. And you got to beat me up for every reason why you shouldn't pay me that dollar, right? But I learned a ton from him. That guy is just extremely smart.
He is.
Yeah, he is a computer, and I love it.
Yeah, and it's so awesome. Send him an email, say, hey, man, I have this question. Are you willing to jump on a call? He's running a $150 million company plus. And he's like, absolutely. Week later on a phone call for 2 hours. I'm like, just a genuinely good dude.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I love Andrew, and he's been super helpful since that acquisition as well.
Yeah. What did you learn, good or bad, through that acquisition? Things you would have done different, or that we can all learn from.
I shouldn't have sold at that point in time. We should have taken more time to figure out how to, make this whole dynamic work out within the family. And I took a massive hit on revenue or EBITDA or however you want to look at it, by selling as quickly as we sold. Right. So I did not get what we should have got for that office. And it was because, in 2018, we put on probably half of the revenue that we had in Raleigh, which was the only office that we sold at that point. And so them looking at that saying, hey, half of this book of business is brand new. They're not going to pay big multiples for that. Right. Nor should they, And so, I think had I had another year or two to say, hey, let's prep for a sell, then I would have made a lot more money on that acquisition. And so I think that the lesson learned there is when you're first starting the business, make sure you've got extremely good documentation as to how things are going to work throughout the process, whether that's, hey, we have difference of opinions on certain things, and being that this was family, we just didn't have anything written down. Like
an operating agreement? Yeah.
No operating agreement, nothing. So that was my mine, our, whatever you want to say, biggest mistake was just not doing that and saying, it's family. We'll make it work. That's not a thing.
Definitely does not always work.
No, definitely not.
So the last 2 years or last year, you would have probably stopped doing door to door, just worked on, like, let it settle down, worked on EBITDA those last 2 years. And then
I would have kept doing door to door, just not in that location.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Move your door to door team somewhere else.
The majority of the door team in Charlotte, for example, and maybe left 5 to 10 guys there, where we had 20 something sales guys there that last summer, and then put more of that money back into online marketing, building more of a traditional.
So then you have to start over. Like, they sell ProForce. What year was that?
Yeah, so it was an asset purchase agreement. So they only bought the customers and the trucks and things like that. They had to rebrand within 6 months. There's a bunch of those types of terms. They didn't get any intellectual property. It was December 18th, 2018 was when the transaction happened. And, from there, I kept the ProForce brand. So really, I didn't have any starting over to do. I just had to finish buying my dad out of the business here in Charlotte.
Gotcha. So when did you start Charlotte then?
It was in 2018. So we had already started it that year. And, we had put our smaller sales team in Charlotte. And it was just basically full of some of our guys who had spent way too much time in Raleigh for the prior 3 years, and let them come over here to Charlotte, start it up. I think we put on like $500,000 in revenue that year here in Charlotte.
But then I know at one point you stopped doing door to door, right?
Yeah. So I had no idea how much money I was going to be left with after this acquisition, because on paper, I didn't own any of ProForce. My dad owned 100% of it.
Jeez. Yeah.
But verbally, the deal was I owned a significant amount, and then it was supposed to be some sort of a mezzanine type loan where after his investment was taken back, then he'd dilute down to 20%. I'd get the other 80%, which isn't the way it ended up working out in the end, because it wasn't written down, right? So I, with that being said, I then had to buy him out of Charlotte there, and I just didn't know what I was going to be left with. So I didn't want to run a door-to-door team not knowing if I could pay their back-end checks. That's one thing I refuse to do. I'll never put together a team I don't know for a fact that I can afford.
Yeah, I agree. And we hear those stories all the time. And some big players. Some
big players had that issue a few years back. And there's some that had it this year. So, but yeah, with that being said, I wouldn't do that. So I said, look, there's 3 guys that said, hey, I really need this job. And they were like the no headache guys. I'm like, I can afford 3 guys. Like, just with what I already had in the bank account, I knew I could afford that. So I let those 3 guys come out. The next year was, so that was 2019, 2020. COVID hits. Like I said, one of my old sales guys, really good friend of mine, took his life. I ended up having 7 friends kill themselves within 24 months. Oh, wow. And so I ended up being really depressed throughout that time. I had never dealt with depression at all in my life. And so going from being just this happy-go-lucky person all the time to, okay, I've sold a business that I told myself I'd never sell. Is just something I was going to build and keep, to all these different changes that I never planned on in life. And then having friends, do what they did, made it really tough during that time. So I said, look, I don't have anything that I can really give to a door-to-door team. And I don't think it's a good idea for my business to be on the doors, potentially getting bad reviews during COVID. And so I made the next worst decision that I'd made in business, which was not running a door-to-door team during COVID. That's
when we started.
Oh yeah. That was the best year to run door-to-door.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure either, because no one really knew what was going on. And it's just kind of weird over here where we live. Like, we couldn't even go to get gas and go to fishing by ourselves. It's just a weird spot. So I think we waited until like June to actually start. And then once we started, we're like, dang it, kicking ourselves in the butt. But we still started that year and we knocked out of the park. People were just happy to see, like everyone was home, obviously. Everyone was just happy to see someone else. Like they wanted to talk. They wanted to sit outside. They were actually signing up. They'd actually tell us that because we weren't wearing masks. It was weird. But yeah, that's the year that we started doing door to door.
That's the best year to have done it. So like I said, that was a big mistake of mine, was not running a team then. And now that I had, let the majority of my team disappear, it's been just, all right, where do we start now? Do I go back to Utah and do the traditional recruiting that I had always done and jump into that wildfire again? Or do I start differently? So really this past 12 months has been when I've really started regaining and regrowing what is to be the future of ProForce door to door. And so we've transitioned into, all right, let's not worry about return missionaries. Let's focus on athletes. Let's focus on something else that's proven to be successful and recruit not necessarily immediately local, but around the surrounding area. So in the Southeast for us, we're in North Carolina. And so recruit out of the Southeast all these ex-athletes that have gone to D1, D2 colleges and played ball,
Yeah, I love that. I love that strategy. It's the same strategy we're going after too. How like I don't want to switch too much a little bit, but how important is retention in door to door?
It's massive. I mean,
and what do you guys do to help with retention?
Yeah, so you mentioned it's a customer experience business that we're in, right? And so you have to, and I think that's probably my biggest claim to fame. Honestly, it's I haven't had the most impressive growth in the industry. I think it's impressive to go from 0 to $3 million in 4 years, or 3.5 years, really, summer of 2015 to end of summer of 2018. But there's people who have done it bigger, faster, stronger, right, than that. But the retention, I haven't seen anybody's retention touch mine.
Awesome.
And you can go call Andrew Barrows, ask him what the best acquisition he's ever done was, and I'm pretty positive he's going to say ProForce.
That's incredible. So what do you do? I know you think, so what do you do that's different?
I don't know that it's super different from anybody else. It's really just the little things. It's recognizing again that this is an experience. And when you have, so for example, right now, if somebody's not doing door to door and they wanted to get into door to door, their options are they need to either build their own team, which I presume is what you did, right?
Yep.
Or they go get a marketing team, which is not necessarily my recommendation, because that marketing team's probably not going to create the same customer experience and basically portray the brand exactly how it needs to be portrayed, right? They're used to selling for some other company, Active or whoever else, and portraying that brand, and probably not even that great at portraying their brand.
All they care about is the dollar.
They're just after the dollar, right? They want that high marketing deal. And so I recommend, the biggest thing you can do is just build your own sales team. And then that sales team has to look, smell, and feel like your service team, So what I mean by that is when I go up and I sell somebody, the way that I communicate with them has to resemble how that first technician goes up and does this pre-service checklist. If you're answering questions differently, there's going to be concerns. If the sales guy's got all this confidence, but then your service guy goes up and he doesn't, you're going to have an issue. Okay, when they call into the office, if they get a different experience, you're going to have an issue, right? If your service guy does things or doesn't do things that the sales guy said was going to get done, you're going to have issues, right? So you have to make sure that all of those things line up. They have to look and feel and smell the same.
Yeah. If you were starting back over, not you are, but if you're just starting a brand new sales team, you've never done door to door before, what would you recommend the size of your first team being?
So I have found that less than 5 is a recipe for disaster. And what I mean by that is unless you just have, 3 all-stars that have done this before.
That's what I got, but I had never done it before. And I had 3 all-stars. that were all into being golden door guys the first year.
There you go. Yeah. So that's a lucky win, right? Or maybe it was skill that you were able to push them through that, right? And so if you're gonna have less than 5 guys, you have to be extremely involved.
I was extremely involved every day, all day long, out there with them, grinding. But those 3 guys now would run through a wall for us, for each one of each other.
That's perfect. You have done, one of the harder things to do in the door-to-door space, which is take a small team, be with them and on top of them all the time, leading from the front, and that can win, right? If you're the business owner that's like, look, I'm not going to get out there and knock on doors, but I need to build this team, then having a small team's probably not going to work.
Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So when you've got a day where all 3 of them don't do well, right? Momentum's key in door-to-door, right? And you have that first day and then the second day that none of them do well. It starts crushing the morale, right? When you have 20 guys, it's very unlikely, regardless of how good this team is, that 10 of them aren't going to do good, You're not going to have like half the team bagel the day, or sell 0 accounts, right? And so the upper percentage of the team is going to have the momentum for the lower percentage of the team, and then allow them to, almost revolve around each other and keep momentum going, right? So that's where a bigger team can come in handy. Again, back to that smaller team, though, if you're willing to put in the time and effort and make sure that you're leading from the front, if you get out there and sell 2-3 accounts every single day, 5 accounts, then they can't say, oh, it's bad area, it's whatever, that all these demons, the voices in their heads can't exist anymore. And so that's the point in either having a big team, is to get rid of the excuses because, hey, somebody did it and they were in a similar area to you. It's just you didn't do the right things today, and that's okay. Let's practice. Let's go back to the drawing board and let's get out there tomorrow and do the right things tomorrow.
In the off season, what's your cadence like for training?
Yeah. So you asked that. I didn't finish that answer, did I?
No,
so I recruit them. Then so I make sure that they have all the core curriculum taken in before they put their first knuckle on a door, right? And by core curriculum, to me, that's they need to understand first and foremost kind of the overview of how door-to-door works, like what a daily schedule looks like, for max success, which I feel like you need to be out on the doors by 10:30 in the morning every morning. If you can get there earlier, great, but much later than 10:30, and you're just ruining your day pretty much. And then you're pretty well going to knock the rest of the day all the way through dark. Once it's dark, go back to your callback. So your schedule's long, and you're not taking a lot of time for lunch if you want to maximize your success. And then your whole goal through that whole day now is to put in maximum effort and deliver effective pitches as many times as possible throughout the day. And so before they ever get out there, I train them to understand, like, that's the reality. That is what you're going to be doing. And if they can't grasp that, then they don't have a place on this team.
Agreed.
And then after they understand that, now they've got to understand some more of the tedious stuff. Okay, what's the pitch look like? How are you going to, and break that down. What's your intro? Like, how are you going to initiate this conversation? And you've got to break that down into what's your nonverbal communication, what's your body doing, how are you standing at the door, what's eye contact, what is good eye contact? Everybody trains you, your parents tell you, have good eye contact. What the hell is good eye contact?
Tell you're staring them down in the eyes and like, what? This is weird.
Yeah, exactly. You don't stare people down in the eyes, right? Especially somebody that you just met. Like me and you could probably stand in a room together and stare each other in the eyes and talk for a while, and it wouldn't feel too awkward. We know each other now. However, I meet Sofia today, and if I sat there and stared her in the eyes for 5 minutes, she's going to feel really uncomfortable, right?
Right.
You have to have planned lookaways. So what are those? Okay, well, go ahead and define them for your sales team. All right, look away, point at your the name of your company, your logo on your shirt or your name badge, whatever it is. Have that look away. Have a look away to talk about why in the heck you're in the neighborhood. What is this process to the intro? The person that answers the door, their first question is, who's here? Who's interrupting Gilmore Girls? All right. Well, they don't care what your name is really, but they do care who you represent. So, and with ProForce, why is ProForce on my door? Great question. I've got 9 of my service guys out here today taking care of a bunch of my customers, and then define who those are. What are their problems? And work your way through this pitch, building as much interest as you can within this intro. Have a hook phrase, help them understand what, your sales guys, how to actually hook this customer within the first 30 seconds so that they're committed to listening to the rest of your pitch. Then you've got to train them on how to effectively price a customer, how to effectively convey the value of the service. So how are you explaining your service, right? And so all of those things have to be trained before I'll even put somebody on the doors, right? So they understand body language, they understand paraverbals, and then they understand the pitch.
Yep.
And they understand the schedule for success. So that's the main thing that we have to get through before they even come out here and knock on a door. After that, we go back over that same stuff for the first 2 weeks in a lot more detail.
Yep.
Right? And then after that, it's mostly just focusing on, okay, how do we take this team from where it's at to the next level, right? And every day it's just raising the bar, which is mostly just practice at that point.
And then your non-compete's up this year. So you're starting in Raleigh. So you'll be back in Raleigh.
Yep.
And so is that where you're putting your team back in Raleigh?
Yeah, we're going to split it up, probably half and half Charlotte and half in Raleigh.
Cool. So you must have a good manager that you're sending over there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When's the last time you've knocked a door?
I've knocked doors this year. Since January, I've gone out and knocked some doors. I don't put a lot of time out there on the doors. It's funny if I wasn't going to have as big of a team as I'll have this year, we're shooting for about 25 guys this year. And if I was going to have a small 5-man team this year, I'd just be out there on the doors the whole summer. Like that'd be what my job is this year because everything else is set up really well. We've got a great operations management team. I don't have to do anything in this business anymore. So the best value that I could add if I had a small team was just the sales that I could put on.
For sure. In order to have a 25-person team in your company, how many people do you have to typically recruit?
So signed up, that's about 40 people that will sign paperwork, but there's going to be about 10 to 15% of those that are going to back out right after, like kind of almost buyer's remorse right after they sign that contract.
For sure.
And then from there, getting those 25 people out to area, it's probably about 40 people that will verbally at least say, oh yeah, I'm all in, I'm coming out. Yep.
Same here. Happens all the time. And I kind of want to switch gears a little bit because we started the podcast with you have other brands within the ProForce name and kind of explain what those are. I mean, I know what they are, but how those got started. Do you do door to door and pressure washing? Bring us through that.
Yeah. So we've got 4 service industries that we cover really. It's pest control, home inspections, pressure washing, and then foundation waterproofing. And the kind of the why behind them, the home inspection company, one of my door-to-door reps that I had in 2017, 18, and he came back out in 2021 and 2022. And then in 2022, we started ProForce Home Inspections together. And so he went out and knocked doors, but when he had time, but then he was at home inspection school getting his license. And in the off season, when he was not knocking doors, he was building homes for his uncle. And so he knew everything about construction. I just saw an opportunity where, hey, this guy is driven. He wants to be a business owner. Let me just partner with him And I had just bought a really, really small pest control company, literally paid them the price of the van and got their 34 customers from them and their van and some extra equipment and stuff like that. So probably one of the better acquisitions ever, ever done. But the super easy one. And that guy owned a home inspection company. I was like, man, what could I do if we were inspecting homes that are about to be bought and we saw that they have termite issues? We saw, everything that they've got going on there. And so I told Kyler, I was like, hey, let's start a home inspection business. I think we can make good money at the home inspections. And my side of it is that I'll make good money on the fact that it helps grow the pest control company. So that was the point in the home inspection business. So it's really just lead gen for pest control.
That's cool.
From my perspective, from Kyler's perspective, that's his business and his baby, And so I love that. The waterproofing company, obviously, if we're doing termite work, we're going to be in people's crawl spaces. They're going to have moisture issues. I'm not going to warranty termites if the moisture is above a certain level. So it's kind of an easy sell. One of my brothers, Spenser, already had a foundation waterproofing company in Tennessee that was doing, $500,000 plus a year in revenue. And so I decided, hey, let's just partner up. Let's create ProForce waterproofing. And, I basically just sub his guys out anytime we have work to do. And now we're getting to the point where we're just going to build our own crew because we've got consistent enough work to where we might as well. So that's where the waterproofing came from, which was just last year. We just started that. So it's new. Literally, we've done just as much revenue this year already as we had done all of last year. So
awesome.
That's a very baby company right now. The pressure washing company, a technician that I used to have, had gone off and started his own pressure washing company with his brother. And they were doing a really good job at getting great reviews. They were doing a great job of just customer satisfaction in general. But they didn't have the growth mechanism. They didn't know door to door. They didn't know any of the other stuff. I said, hey, look, you guys come run the operations and I'll get you guys the sales. And so then we just started cross-marketing our existing pest control customers with email campaigns, text campaigns, and our technicians can sell it. Our door-to-door guys can sell it. And what we found is that last summer, our door-to-door guys had more success because of it, because somebody that wasn't interested in pest control bought pressure washing. And then we re-offered the pest control to them because they get 20% off of their pressure washing if they get pest.
That's awesome. So it's not like there's three separate companies. It's just three other verticals.
It's three other verticals outside of pest control, but they are separate companies too. And we have different equity percentages because I partnered with these guys on it.
Did you make an operating agreement?
I do, yes. I learned my lesson.
For sure. Yeah, that's cool. So I know I saw that and I thought that was super interesting that you're doing that. I thought it was really cool. What does the future look like for ProForce? Like, give me what's going to look like in 5 years. And do you plan on selling again, or are you keeping this one?
I mean, I if I did sell, it would be a buy down where it's, maybe a private equity deal where it's them starting up a new platform and it's going to be the ProForce platform. That's an option that I'd be open to.
Just take some chips off the table, you mean?
Take a little bit of chips off the table, but roll over most of the equity into the future thing and build up $100 million, pest control company as quick as possible. And in that situation, outside of that, it's to continue just growing like we are now. And, at some point there's going to be an exit, right? I don't know when that'll be, but try to time that just right with the market. And, I don't have any desire to get out of this industry until I've got a good, 50 plus million in the bank. So
awesome. I love that.
Ways to go.
Yeah. You and I both, but that's the goal.
Exactly.
I seen you had a Supra.
That's my brother's. That's Stetson's, the one that owns the waterproofing company. Yeah.
Nice. I seen you're a car guy.
I am a car guy. Yeah. I love cars.
And you have a boat too?
I do have a boat. Yeah. I think if you're in door-to-door sales, you kind of have to have a wake boat, right?
Is that just so you can help recruit your guys?
It's funny. a boat was something I always said I'll never buy one because I know that they're horrible purchases to make, right? And as a workaholic like I am, I have a hard time with what do I do with my family that everybody's excited about, and I don't have like one kid looking at a tablet while the other kid's involved, and so that was honestly just one of my ways of saying, hey, look, guys, especially in my busiest season, which is the summer, I need to be very involved with my family. And, I think we put on like 60 hours on the boat last year. And so it was quite a bit of quality time with my family.
That's awesome.
So what's that worth? It's definitely worth a wake boat.
I agree. It's a nice wake boat too.
It's got the added benefit of, the sales guys love it. So it saves me a little bit of money in the summer where, in the summer we do this thing where we'll take one day off a month and the company will just provide. So it's usually a Monday. So they'll get like half of their Saturday off, for example, and then we'll just take all of Monday off, and then we'll go do something fun as a team. And so we'll rent a lake house, for example, that everybody can stay at, cater the whole thing, and then stay out on the lake and have a good time for the weekend, or go to a theme park for a day or something like that, So it saves me a little bit of money by not having to rent the boat because I've already got it.
Yeah. I've been looking at a boat for like the last 6 months, so we're going to pull the trigger this year as well. I literally live on Lake Michigan. I open up my front door and Lake Michigan's right there. So again, I'm kind of like yourself, a super busy guy, especially in the summer. But again, I need to take the time to spend time with my kids, and they're the ones who be like, we want a boat. We want a boat. So kids from 4 to 18, like they want to go out and have fun with their friends too.
You've got my approval on that one, man. It's not a bad decision at all. Like, yeah, you're gonna hate the fact that you lost as much money as you did, but when you as long as you look at it for what you exchanged that money for, that experience and that time with your family, all the videos and photos, yeah, I'll give all my money to that.
Are you a reader?
I have extremely bad ADHD, so
me too.
I don't want to say that I'm a reader, but I am a listener.
Cool. What are your 2 favorite books or anything? Could be anything that you have listened to.
So something I'm really passionate about is happiness, because again, I've had a lot of friends that struggle with some issues, and The Happiness Advantage is a book that I really like. It basically just helps retrain your brain on how to put happiness before the achievement. You're not happier because you built a multi-million-dollar business. Let's be honest. You were happy, and that happiness actually helped you be able to accomplish that thing. Like, how easy is it to go on the doors when you're just mad at the world and sell an account?
It's not easy at all.
Right. But if you're really happy, it's not that hard to sell anymore.
Well, people feel your energy.
Exactly. And so, once you realize that happiness is really just kind of a choice, and it's really just training your brain is what it boils down to. We've got to, kind of go, I don't know if you're religious or not, but like one thing that I took from religion, I'm not as religious as I once was. I'm not a member of the church that I grew up in. And, but one thing that I learned from church was with the way that they taught prayer is, that you spend the majority of the time in prayer just talking about the things you're grateful for. And so I guess I was trained my whole life on this happiness advantage anyways, is especially if you do a good job of it at it, where you're trying to take new things that you're grateful for every single day and talk about those, right? So, today I had an opportunity to be on this podcast. I'm super grateful for that. I'm learning things from you just by the way you're asking questions, like what should matter. You're not doing a lot of the talking and putting a lot of new information out, because I get that I'm the guest on this, but I'm doing my best at learning from what you're asking. You're asking really, really important questions. And those are questions that I need to continue to ask myself over and over again. Like, what is my why? Why did this work? Why didn't it work? What should I have done differently? And so, creating these new gratitudes every single day and trying to overwhelm the amount of negative that you put in your life daily. Like, it's so easy to say, oh man, I had a rude person on the doors today. Okay, well, just forget about that and let's focus on how many nice people did you have on the doors today? Like, did you make somebody smile today? Did you make somebody laugh today? Are you grateful you got to do that?
Yeah, and I give myself a rule, like on myself even, like I'll only let myself be mad at something for 5 minutes and that's it. I just have to get over and move on.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
I have one last question. What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of my family. My brother Sterling that works with me. All of my siblings, my kids, my wife. Like I see. And as far as like being proud of myself within that realm, I'm really proud of the inspiration that I've been able to give to them. I see them doing things in their life that they otherwise wouldn't have had I not created that inspiration for them. Sterling, this last year, I'd done some blood work and realized that I needed to get in a little bit better shape with my diet. Basically, my triglycerides were high, and my brother was 260 pounds, and which was like the biggest he had ever been. And I was like, man, I'm going to go on a diet. And he's like, you know what? I'll do it with you. And, so I'm proud of the fact that I have lived a life where people are willing to look at me as an inspiration and then take action on that and change their life. So he lost 50 pounds within like 4 months. Awesome. My wife, she's pursuing activities that she used to not be willing to pursue because she just didn't feel like she could or should. She's recently started doing karate. She's doing a ton of art, and she's homeschooling the kids. The kids are super smart. I mean, my son's 12 years old. He can solve every Rubik's Cube that you could possibly put in his hands and probably beat most people doing it, So I'm really proud of the self-improvement that I've seen in other people's lives, that I feel like part of that was something that I inspired.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Appreciate that. What about you? I want to return that question.
I'd say along the same lines, bettering myself, like from where I was to where I am today. I stopped drinking 4 years ago. And what I didn't know was going to happen is the circle of influence that I had on others to quit smoking or drinking too. And I didn't smoke, but they just saw, my path to success and being healthy along the way, going to the gym every single day, pushing hard, and then what it transformed me to be to who I am today and the strides that I've taken over the last 4 years and the circle of influence that I had. And, probably 10 to 15 people have stopped quitting or quit smoking or quit drinking, or people reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, like, hey, I seen you quit drinking. That's super awesome. I'm doing the same thing. So that's something that I wasn't prepared for, actually. And I like to share that message. I have young kids that were heavily drinking and, bartenders, but had all the talent in the world. I got them out of that. It took me 6 months to recruit a kid. And then he came in, and first year he dropped like 550 sales first summer. Pretty incredible. You know what I mean? So yeah. And then now he quit drinking. He's at the gym every single day with me. Like, it's things like that really move me.
Yeah. It's funny how like life transitions from like you're chasing this goal or, money. And then you realize that the thing you end up being most proud of isn't the fact, you're a pest control millionaire, like you're not that proud of that.
Not at all. Like, that's why it's called Pest Control Millionaire, but it's not about me. It's like, how can we create other people that can listen to the show that can turn their life and business into what we are at today or bigger, Yeah,
that's why I'm as open as I am. Like you asked a bunch of questions today, and we're like, you don't need to tell me the exact process. Like, I don't care. Is it going to help somebody?
Yeah, absolutely will.
And that's look. Let's share the information. Let's better the industry. Let's all rise with the tide. Hopefully something we've talked about today will get somebody to do a better job at door to door, so that they don't make it harder for the rest of us. That's the thing. I think we should be proud of. Every time one of these guys in any of these pictures, I've gotten like 12 phone calls this year, and what are we in end of February, from guys that have worked with me in the past. And one of them called me the other day. He's like, "Hey man, I just want you to know that the things that I learned from you have led me to starting my own business, and I put in my pocket $1 million last year."
It's incredible. I had the same thing happen to me. Yeah, like same thing. Guy reached out on Instagram. He's like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me." He's like, "I was kind of an idiot when I worked for you a few years ago, but I just want you to let you know you're awesome, and that I learned so much from being in the opportunities. Like I really turned my life around." Like that is so cool.
That's the best. Like that, and that's why, like I said earlier, I don't want to be out of this until I've put $50 million in the bank. It's really not even about that. I just know what that means. If I can do that, then how many more of those stories did I create versus right now exactly. So that's really the why behind that number. On top of that, it's nice to know that, $50 million, there's no way I'm, losing everything. Like virtually impossible, I could be pretty dumb with money and still make it at that. Right. But anyways, man, I really appreciate you and your questions. Look forward to a lot of phone calls with you in the future and sharing information. Yeah,
I agree. It's cool. Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, but obviously the show is not free. You can pay for the podcast by sharing it with your friends, share it with your family and your coworkers, like and subscribe, and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. These things just make a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions you want answered about business or life by me or any of my guests, send it to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com, and you can get in touch about personal business coaching at pestcontrolmillionaire.com as well. And if you guys would like to join our Facebook page and get in there, we have a lot of entrepreneurs in there that like to talk shop. So see you guys in there. And again, thanks for listening to the show.